You're listening to the Inbound Logistics Podcast with a special look at our video podcast series. Welcome to the Inbound Logistics video podcast series presented by Inbound Logistics Magazine. Today we'll be looking at cross-border trade in 2025 and how to thrive amid tariff turmoil. Joining us is Jose Minarro, Managing Director of Cross-Broder Logistics for Sunset Transportation. Here's our host, Amy Roach.
Thanks, Jeff. And Jose, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the invite, Amy.
Absolutely. Great. So we have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, a very timely topic with the tariff changes, coming at us fast and furious. But before we dive in, if you would just introduce yourself, share a quick overview of Sunset and your role there at the company.
Be glad to. My name is Jose Minarro. I've been doing cross-border trade for the last 30 plus years. So I've been doing this as long as USMCA, the former NAFTA, has been in place. Started in El Paso. Now I've been for 28 years in Laredo, Texas. So I'm the guy crossing the trucks back and forth. And I've seen a lot, Amy, as you can imagine. I represent Sunset. We opened up their Mexico division 6 years ago. Very proud of where we are today. Sunset is part of Armada and Sunset Holdings, a company based out of Pittsburgh. And it's around 1,000 employees. We have a transportation spend of over $1 billion. And warehouses all over the U.S., it's around 2 million square feet.
Fantastic. Great. Well, we're very excited to have your expertise here because there is so much going on and so many changes and so much uncertainty. So I think to kick off, let's just start with the current scenario. What are you seeing taking place right now on the ground in real time in terms of the cross-border activity and all of the changes that are swirling around regarding the tariffs?
Sure. So I guess the main word is uncertainty. For the last 3.5 months, right? We've been living in a very rapid changing environment. So it seems like every time I'm invited to participate in a conference or in a podcast, something just came up, and I kid you not, is true. I was in Querétaro two weeks ago, and it was on the same day that the tariffs kicked in for 232 and for automotive, etc. So I think it's an interesting ride, but most important for me, I always based my comments on the customer's voice, and I do have the honor to talk very frequently to customers that are based in the interior of Mexico border regions and that are doing some sort of a trade with the United States. All of them are living a world of uncertainty caused by the fact that now everybody is either paying duties or tariffs, and it used to be zero under NAFTA or under USMCA, TEMEC, or they're pretty close to start paying them. So most of the customers that I interact with, they were not ready for any of this. We were all hoping for the best, and which means for a change in that direction on how this was going to impact, and it's been a learning curve for everyone, for shippers, for logistics companies, for customs brokers, as well as for customs in the United States, for CBP. We are now functioning as translators. An executive order comes in, we all have to sit down, go back to school, and translate how are we going to enforce or execute those executive orders on the regular day-to-day activities, and most importantly, how to help customers strategize on how to navigate that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Makes sense. Can you share some examples of real pricing? How is this playing out in terms of rates? And then the second follow-up to that would be, what is the impact on volume cross-border?
Yes. we can address pricing from several angles, and I'll address them from three different angles:
Great.
from a transportation, from a warehousing, and from a custom standpoint. Transportation, what I would say, Amy, is that over the last 5 years, what we've learned is that our cross-border pricing to move trucks back and forth uh, came from a very static environment where rates were pretty much something that somebody with enough experience would have them in their heads, and they will tell you how much is at Chicago to Mexico City, right?
Mhm.
That changed tremendously with COVID, after COVID, and with what's going on today. Situations of capacity and the balance between southbound and northbound change every week, every single week. So now the pricing, to give you an idea, when we were ending COVID, and all of our partner carriers here in Laredo were doing very decent business and growing in a growing mode. They were charging $5 per mile for the northbound and $4 for the inbound into Laredo, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Today, it's $2 for the outbound and $1 for the inbound.
Okay.
So just imagine the difference on how much money uh, is left now on the table because of
Yeah.
the market conditions. And what we see is a tremendous downsize of the size of fleets for companies that are cross-border focused, which means they have a US entity, they have a Mexico entity, they play the border game every single day. That's what they were born for, right? And now they're working under totally different conditions. So they're perceiving a lot less money, and that presents a challenge on capacity, available capacities. So now these tariffs came into effect. Everybody was rushing to cross stuff, move inventories into the US to avoid tariffs. And guess what happened to us in Laredo warehousing? The good news is that Laredo suffered a tremendous amount of growth on the warehousing square footage
Mhm.
piece of it. Over the last 3 years, it has grown exponentially. From
Yep.
growing 1 million square feet per year, now Laredo is building 9 million square feet in the current year. Okay,
Oh, wow.
that was all the effect of nearshoring, and now
Mhm.
a lot of that space is full of inventory that crossed the consignee, or the recipient in the US was not ready for it, and our warehouses are full of those inventories. There's a lot of cargo for the amount of trucks available. So that's also going to impact on the short term your price for Northbound. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, I mean, you said it before, it's uncertainty. It's just all change all the time. I guess it really underscores the need to kind of be agile and flexible and go with the flow, right?
That's exactly right. The name of the game right now is to be very nimble and very agile, and to adapt to the current conditions, and honestly rely on the whole network of the cross border, because simple things like simple but very important, like border dray carriers,
Mhm.
when they're hit with peaks and valleys, like we've been hit recently, when we're all rushing to meet the deadline of 12:01 Eastern, 11:01 Central,
Mhm.
cross trailers before the deadline. Well, that means that particular day took our balance of crossings out of whack entirely.
Yeah.
And we're working on Saturdays, we're working on Sundays. There's no more weekends for us since all of that started. And I'm not complaining. All I'm saying is that the normal flow of goods changed.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to come up with solutions for our customers, because nobody wants to leave their shipments behind if today they pay 0 and tomorrow they pay 25%.
Right, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too. You mentioned deadline, and we are coming up very shortly on the deadline of May 3rd, which was set where the U.S. was going to expand 25% tariff to include all imported automobiles and auto parts. And then obviously we had another executive order just last night. I'm sure you're still digesting it. And you mentioned being a translator. Can you share a little bit on there? What have you translated so far? And is that May 3rd deadline still in play, or what is changing now?
it took us a while to get to where we were semi-prepared for the May 3rd. But the truth is, when I say semi-prepared, I go back to the voice of the customer, Amy. And talking, let's focus a little bit on automotive, which is the main industry that everybody talks about for a reason, right? The volumes are pretty high. And we talk to tier ones, tier twos, as well as the auto manufacturers. And the common denominator on the conversations that I've had with the main players, the ones that are pushing a lot of volume back and forth, was that everybody is waiting on that, or was waiting on that May 3rd time frame to make long-term decisions. So I'm not going to quote names, but one of the largest auto manufacturers in Mexico told me something that resonated with everything that we've seen. Okay, so he said, Jose, automotive industry is very agile in many aspects of what they do. Okay, in production, in quality, in engineering, etc. But it's definitely not agile in making decisions to shut down plants and move them to another country. Okay, so with that said, what I've seen is that many of our customers are not just sitting idle, waiting for a due date to happen. They have run multiple scenarios of analysis or forecasting, trying to decide or trying to come up with the possible decisions of what would happen if tariffs were 0, 5, 10, 25%, right? What would happen to their actual business, and how can they make wise business decisions for the next 5 years? Amy, they're not going to make decisions for long-term decisions on the fly. They're waiting for that. And the executive order that came in last night, it is complex. It is divided into two main components. Okay, one of them is giving an incentive to companies that finish vehicles in the U.S. Okay, and that one does benefit of USMCA components, so that is good news for Mexico. And the other one is about Section 232, aluminum and steel. Okay, that's the one that we are still digesting to identify exactly which components are they going to affect. But it also sounds like a very promising scenario for Mexico. And since that's my business, I'll focus on that. And I know that everyone is thinking of tariffs globally, right? But for Mexico, the fact that we are under USMCA and the fact that now we were given a consideration to exempt certain products of Section 232 of aluminum and steel, that keeps putting Mexico in a good spot for long-term decisions, which is what every single automotive customer or assembler is asking. Sure. Is Mexico still worth for manufacturing?
Yeah, sure. And it's so obviously there, and it's so crucial for automobiles. It's a large supply chain. There's a lot of capital investment. Like you said, you can't just move things quickly back and forth. Yep. So I guess, how does this all impact the ability to do that long-term supply chain planning? Are companies still trying to make a long-term forecast and plan and live by it? Or are they sort of switching to, what can we do for the short term or the long term?
I think we are all addressing both. We have to. We're in business, and we're here to survive and to thrive through business. So short term, we have evolved into a lot of communication that did not happen in the past from a customs brokerage standpoint, and I'll be more specific on a U.S. customs brokerage standpoint, because this whole thing evolves around tariffs in the U.S. Okay, yeah. So we are Mexican customs brokers and we are U.S. customs brokers. I make fun that as Mexican customs brokers, we used to play a more strategic role because nobody understood how Mexican customs deals on a daily basis. So we were necessary. We haven't talked about Mexican customs since all things started. Right. So now it's a good wake-up call to remind customers that we're not paper pushers when it comes to U.S. customs brokerage. Okay, so we are focusing on short-term decisions and or options for customers, and that's stuff so simple like the way we pay duties in Mexico. I mean, and I'll just zoom on that one. Because of USMCA, many of our customers have not paid a nickel on duties coming from Mexico into the US for many, many years, right? Mm-hmm. So out of face, out of mind, nobody remembered the importance of a free trade agreement. Mm-hmm. But now that there's some duties being paid, there's certain ways CBP allows an importer to pay for those duties. And one of the main benefits that we've seen customers take is the periodic monthly statement, which means that a shipment gets released or cleared today, and that customer has up to 30 days to pay for those duties or taxes. And that's a great benefit, because if the audience is not familiar on how that works in Mexico, that's totally the opposite. You need the cash. You need the cash on hand the day that trailer crosses from the U.S. into Mexico. And in the United States, typically customers pay in a 10-day window, mm-hmm. and customs has also that benefit for certain importers of the 30-day window. So that's how we focused on short-term stuff that is new for customers. Mm-hmm. And on the long term, yes, I have to admit we're waiting on decisions coming from above to make those ones.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Okay, great. So tell us then a little bit, what are some things that companies can do to mitigate, or I don't know if you can avoid the impact? I guess mitigate is really the focus. What can they do there, while all of this is still unsettled?
Okay. So getting a little bit technical, okay? And because this is about tariffs, so I don't want to sell fear, but what I see is that now that we all had the wake-up call of the benefit of a free trade agreement and how important it is to do things correctly, or in our world, we talk about compliant. Mm-hmm. The first thing that we all started talking about 3 months ago was, hey guys, all of these changes are triggered by your harmonized tariff schedule number, by your product classification number. Are you certain of the number that you're using? Okay, that some of them have been using it for years. Okay, and a lot of the answers were not the right ones. Most of them were, well, it's something that we use over the last 10 years, so nobody really knows if it's the right one. So we went back to school, the shippers, us as their partners, and we started reclassifying or helping our customers validate their classification numbers to make sure that a lot is in hand on that number, right, for customs purposes. So make sure you're using the right one. And then the second one that came into effect when all of this evolved towards certain exemptions on USMCA, mm-hmm. we started talking about the importance of certificates of origin for USMCA. And we also got the same answers, right? We got answers that we did not felt that they would be enough in case customs went and did an audit, mm-hmm. and asked our customers, okay, so Amy, you're declaring that your product is USMCA compliant. Do you have the proof of that? Do you have all of the back analysis on rules of origin that make you and I feel comfortable that you're doing the right thing? And most of the answers were not proper. Many of them were, well, we have the piece of paper that says certificate USMCA, so I comply, right? And our answer as customs brokers is, your piece of paper is worth nothing. What's worth is all of the analysis behind it to support what you're declaring, and it's helping you bypass the payment of duties and tariffs. Okay.
Right.
And last but not least, since we know the customers and we know that some of them, not all of them, are producing for not only the U.S. market, Amy, but mm-hmm. some of them are producing in Mexico, product that comes into the U.S. and later is shipped globally. Okay, mm-hmm. So we sit down with a lot of our customers to address those particular lanes or routes to see if we could benefit of the utilization of a bonded warehouse, a free trade zone, or a simple inbound movement from Laredo to Houston because they're going to put it in a ship that goes to Europe, right?
Right.
So all of that, we went back to school, we went back product by product, and we tried to help them mitigate or minimize the amount of tariffs or duties that they would pay on regular imports or regular trucks just coming back from Mexico into the United States.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And you're really getting, I think, into the nitty gritty there. A lot of times we talk about cross-border or nearshoring, and we're talking sort of like a big strategic perspective. Does it make sense for the supply chain? And, you're saying really right now that shippers have to be focusing on these basic, like you said, back to school, the execution side of it. And, are they doing it correctly? So that's a really like a different, I guess, mind frame from probably what companies have been thinking. I
think I'm going to give you a real life example that describes the story.
Yeah.
When we sit down with customers that hire us as U.S. Customs brokers, we sit down with them at the end of every quarter, and we show them our results and our key performance indicators. And we say, hey, guys, we moved so many shipments. This was the total lead time. We were 98% on time, and everybody's happy, and everybody's expecting that information because they want to make sure that we're performing as a 3PL, as a logistics company.
Sure.
And then I always joked around because I said, okay, so now the boring slides are next, the custom slides.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, we had slides that gave them information product specific. We had pictures of their products, the HTS number that they were using, the amount of duties that they paid, and the amount of duties that they would have paid without USMCA. Okay. And I saw a lot of people yawning and going to sleep because we said, hey, you paid $600 on the last quarter, and without NAFTA, it would have been thousands and thousands of dollars on duties. And nobody really cared, but it was in our opinion, it was just a reminder saying, hey guys, this is very important. Okay, USMCA is making the whole region stronger, but it's not something to take lightly. Okay, and over the years, honestly, the services of a U.S. Customs broker, this hurts because I hear it every time I assist into U.S. Customs Broker Association national conferences. And I hear the complaint that the services have been commoditized. Nobody. Right. So you're just filling up a paper, Jose. Why do you want to charge me $50? And we're like, it's more than $50. But during the last changes, Amy, in order for us to exempt products, the truth is that the labor that we're doing at U.S. Customs brokers duplicated and sometimes triplicated. Since this was so sudden, we haven't had a chance to involve our IT departments to automate all of the new things that we have to capture. So in layman's word, in very simple terms, for every single line item on an invoice, we used to capture one classification number, one HTS. Now we have to capture 2 to 3 to say this is the normal one for duty rate, this is the one for the executive order on fentanyl, and this is the one that exempts it because we're USMCA. 3 for 1. So technology is great and it'll allow us to adapt, but for now we've become slower, and we've had to truly show that we have the manpower to support these changes on an agile manner, and we've done.
Right. Okay. And so from your perspective as a 3PL, then obviously some of that onus is put back on you. And it sounds like customers are coming to you sort of on a daily basis. Like you said, what do we do now? And maybe it's time for them to embrace those boring slides that you referenced. But are there other things, that shippers are coming to you now? Other questions, like how else are they asking for help, I guess, with this whole scenario?
We have become a strategic partner. Okay, so I said we are translators, we are strategic, and we help customers execute all of the changes that are going on today. So we have evolved from a role of paper pushers into actual consultants, which sounds a lot better, right?
Yeah.
It makes us feel a much better. So what customers are asking us to review are all of the possible scenarios to defer payment of tariffs or duties. And I'll give you an example on the automotive. So we have finished automobiles in Mexican yards, and we have finished automobiles in Laredo yards. So what's the difference between the two of them? Why would you keep them in the two different sides of the river?
Mm-hmm.
The ones that made it to Laredo were sent to beat the automotive 25% because of USMCA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were able to take a ride with me here in Laredo today, you would see that there's a tremendous amount of space intended for trailer parking. Okay, that was built in that same boom that I mentioned about real estate over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
That on December of last year, I mean, it was empty. All of those spaces were empty. Okay, and we were all scratching our heads, figuring out, okay, so how do we bring business for all of those beautiful new yards?
Mm-hmm.
Now there's not a single space available, and they're all full of finished vehicles. Okay,
Right.
so that's great. And then the poor guys that do not qualify for USMCA and are trying to avoid the 25%. So how do they address that? And those are the guys keeping the vehicles in Mexican yards until this is solved, until the long-term decision is taken. Okay.
Yep.
We explored, I'll give you an example. We explored the fact of bringing them into a foreign trade zone or a bonded warehouse.
Yeah, sure.
Which is doable. Here is the catch. You can bring them under a status that is named non-privileged for customs purposes, which means something very easy to understand. If we brought those vehicles today, okay, and we put them in our bonded warehouse here in Laredo, we would not pay duties at the bridge or before it crosses. We will pay duties when we extract those vehicles. But because it is non-privileged, that the duty or the tariff rate that would apply is the one that was in effect when those vehicles came into the U.S.
I see.
Not the one that when you extract them. So believe me, if they were not under the privileged stage, all of our bonded warehouses and free trade zones would be full of vehicles in here.
Sure.
All over the United States.
Yeah.
I have scenarios where some of that product that came from other ports, not only Laredo, but from other ports, I've heard that many of the bonded warehouses in the nation, in the United States, are full, and now the importers are looking for space anywhere. So we're gonna receive our first 2 containers next week of stuff that came through Chicago, and now it's coming to Laredo just to be able to avoid that payment.
Right. So interesting. Wow. Well, obviously challenges everywhere, and we've been talking about that. I want to flip it. Is there, any silver lining? Are there opportunities to be had in this environment? I mean, maybe if you're operating a bonded warehouse, you might be cheering. What are, I guess, from the shipper perspective, are there opportunities that they can take advantage of given this uncertainty and these conditions?
What I keep saying is even if we wake up 3 months from today and we just realized it was a very bad dream, right? We've learned a lot of lessons, all of us, not only the shippers, and it's made us more aware of what we have in terms of free trade with the U.S. And and it's made all of us more aware of how important it is to be agile or nimble in these eternal changing conditions. Okay? Communication is key. Technology is a huge help on being able to maneuver over tremendous changes. What we've seen from a custom standpoint, again, on executive orders versus other type of changes that we've experienced over the past, is that we had no time to prepare. Okay, so many of the new programs or the new rules or regulations that we've seen over the last 10 years from CBP were changes that were openly announced 6 months, a year before they came into effect.
Right.
We had a chance to digest it. We had a chance to program for it. We had a chance to set up processes, educate our own employees, our customers, our partner carriers, etc. This time we had no time, absolutely no time to prepare. And again, even if the nightmare ends and we go back to a position where tariffs allow Mexico to remain in a competitive stage for manufacturing or for as a consumer or as a partner from the United States, we learned that this thing about supply chain for cross-border can get more complicated than what we already had in the past, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's up to people, processes, and technology that allows us to move very fast on those decisions. Customers also learn the lesson of what's important versus what's not that important, and being able to integrate transportation, warehousing, and customs on a door-to-door solution. It's key for a customer to be able to make one phone call and say, okay, so how do we attack this, right?
Yeah.
What's the plan? Or you know what, jump in your car, Jose, come to Monterrey, and let's map the new process. Let's map the new flow, and let's figure out what's the best alternative, so that they, in turn, our customers in Mexico that many times are reporting into a corporate headquarters in the U.S. or anywhere else in the world, right? And they are presenting on a very short time frame the best alternatives available.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your guidance and your insight. Obviously, a super timely, super complex topic with lots of moving parts. We'll be watching closely. I know you will be too. Thank you again for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
My pleasure, Amy. Thank you very much for the invitation again.
Absolutely.
Inbound Logistics Magazine is the information leader in supply chain and logistics management. Start your free print and digital subscription today by visiting bit.ly/getil. That's bit.ly/get_IL and stay ahead of the 3PL game.
The Inbound Logistics Podcast is a production of Inbound Logistics Magazine. For the most in-depth information around logistics, transportation, and supply chain practices, get your free print and digital subscription at inboundlogistics.com/subscribe. Connect with us via LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube for the most current developments in the industry. If you'd like to leave us some feedback or have a topic you'd like to see covered in a future episode, call our dialogue line at 888-878-3247 or leave us an email at podcast@inboundlogistics.com. I'm your host, Jeff Vita. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time here on the Inbound Logistics Podcast.